2 years ago, something was watching me from the third-floor balcony. If I hadn't noticed it that night, my neighbor would have died. Back then, I lived alone in an old, quiet apartment building. It was so old that the pipes would bang in the middle of the night and the hallway lights would randomly flicker on and off. But nothing bad had ever happened there, and that's exactly why I liked living there. That night, just before midnight, I walked down to the corner convenience store to buy a pack of cigarettes. The streets were completely empty. As I came back and stood in front of the building's entrance, digging through my pocket for my keys, I suddenly got this strange feeling. It felt like someone was watching me. The feeling wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough to make me stop and look around. There was nobody there. I even stood still for a moment, listening carefully, hoping I'd hear footsteps behind me. Nothing. Then, for absolutely no reason at all, I looked up. At first, my eyes wandered across the entire building until they stopped on the third floor, on the balcony of Mr. Vectorio's. A woman was standing there. She wasn't moving. She was just standing perfectly still, staring down at me. She was wearing a thin, white robe that gently swayed with the wind. It looked far too light for such a cold night. Her long hair hung down over part of her face. The moonlight made her skin look unnaturally pale, almost as if it had drained every bit of color from it. There was a strange smile on her face. The sight of it instantly made me uncomfortable. Feeling awkward, I raised my hand and waved at her. A second later, she slowly waved back. Her hand moved with an eerie slowness. For just a moment, I had the unsettling feeling that she was inviting me upstairs. A chill ran through my entire body. I turned away and walked into the building. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to convince myself that it was probably just Mr. Vectorio's wife getting some fresh air after waking up in the middle of the night. So I decided to not overthink it and headed inside. The moment the front door closed behind me, I suddenly remembered something that made me freeze. Mr. Vectorio's wife had died. I remembered the flowers lining the hallway during her funeral. I remembered how quietly he thanked everyone who came to offer their condolences. Ever since then, he had been living alone. So if there was a woman inside that apartment, who was she? A cold shiver crawled down my spine. I slowly started climbing the stairs. Every single step echoed louder than it should have. By the time I reached the third floor, my heart was pounding. The door to Mr. Vectorio's apartment was slightly open. That alone felt wrong. He was always careful about locking his door. He was the kind of person who checked the lock twice before going to bed. I slowly pushed the door open. "Mr. Vectorio?" I called. No answer. The apartment was completely dark. There was a strange metallic smell in the air, but at first I couldn't figure out what it was. I took one cautious step inside. The hallway light spilled across the kitchen floor. That's when I saw the shattered glass. Broken pieces were scattered across the tile floor near the counter. A dark trail stretched from the bathroom toward the bedroom. My stomach tightened. I slowly walked into the bathroom. The sink was filled with blood-soaked cotton, as if someone had desperately been trying to stop a wound from bleeding. A clear handprint was smeared across the mirror. Drops of blood covered the floor. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called 911. While I was talking to the dispatcher, I heard something. A muffled sound coming from the bedroom. It sounded like someone struggling to breathe beneath something heavy. I slowly made my way toward the room. It felt like the floor was shaking beneath my feet. The pillows had been ripped apart. Feathers were scattered everywhere. I looked around, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Then, the closet door suddenly flew open. Mr. Vectorio collapsed onto the floor. His hands and feet were tied together. His face was swollen and covered with blood. His eyes were open with pure terror. But he was still alive. I rushed over to him. "What happened? Who did this to you?" I untied him, helped him sit up, and gave him some water so he could catch his breath. A few minutes later, the police and paramedics arrived. They rushed him to the hospital. Later, he told the police that 2 men had broken into his apartment to rob him. He tried to fight back. He even managed to stab one of them, but they eventually overpowered him, tied him up, locked him inside the closet, and ran away. I asked him about the woman I had seen on the balcony. I assumed she must have been with the intruders. He looked at me with a confused expression. My heartbeat slowed, but there was something unsettling in his eyes. "There was no woman," he said. After that, I stopped asking questions. A few days later, I saw him moving out. I stood by my window, watching him load boxes into his car. Then something caught my attention. He was holding a white robe, the exact same robe the woman on the balcony had been wearing. I walked downstairs and asked him, "Is that robe yours, Mr. Vectorio?" He looked at it, then back at me. "No," he said quietly. "It belonged to my wife. Why do you ask?" I don't even remember what I answered, but one thing I'm absolutely certain of. Whatever was standing on that balcony that night, it wasn't there to scare me. It was there to calm me. Because if I hadn't looked up at that exact moment, Mr. Vectorio wouldn't still be alive today.